Jonas Merrick had settled into obscurity by design, not accident. The service corridors of Drellian 5 weren't glamorous, but they offered what luxury never could: anonymity. As he adjusted his wrench to tighten the fifth air filter coupling of the day, he savored the predictable rhythm of mechanical work. Tools didn't ask questions. Machines didn't care about your past. 20 years was a long time to be a ghost. Long enough that he sometimes caught himself forgetting his real name when he woke from fitful sleep, but never long enough to forget why he ran. The station's intercom crackled to life, momentarily drowning out the low hum of the central ventilation system where Jonas worked. "Attention all station personnel and residents. The diplomatic vessel Eternal Whisper from Velsharia has requested emergency docking privileges. All maintenance staff report to Section 7 for priority systems check." Jonas paused, spanner halfway through a rotation. Velsharians. Here. The coincidence felt too precise to be random, but after 2 decades of jumping at shadows, he'd learned to distrust his own paranoia. "You heard that, Merrick?" Station Chief Wexler's gravelly voice echoed through the narrow corridor. "Stop fondling that air scrubber and get your ass to Section 7. Royal entourage means everything needs to work perfect. These blue bloods throw diplomatic incidents over a flickering light." Jonas nodded, carefully tucking his tools into the worn leather pouch strapped to his thigh. "On my way." Section 7 was Drellian 5's premier docking bay, reserved for dignitaries and the obscenely wealthy. Jonas rarely had reason to venture there, preferring the anonymity of service corridors and maintenance ducts. Today, however, duty called. The diplomatic reception area buzzed with frantic activity. Station security donned their rarely worn formal uniforms, while ambassadorial staff from a dozen systems hurried to form proper welcome lines. Jonas slipped past them, focusing on the environmental console near the airlock. A quick diagnostic showed the atmospheric stabilizers were running hot. Too many bodies in a space designed for efficient processing, not pomp and ceremony. As he adjusted the thermal regulators, the station gave a slight shudder, the telltale sign of a ship docking. The Velsharian vessel had arrived. "System check complete," Jonas murmured into his comm unit. "Environmental controls stabilized." "Good," Wexler replied. "Now, make yourself scarce. These folks don't like seeing the help." Jonas was already backing away when the massive doors began their synchronized opening sequence. He should have left immediately. Later, he would replay this moment countless times, wondering how different life might have been if he'd just turned and walked away. But curiosity, that fatal human flaw, kept him rooted in place, partially hidden behind a support column. The Velsharians emerged like living works of art. Their bodies, tall and willowy, seemed to shimmer with an internal light that made their blue-tinted skin glow. Elaborate ceremonial armor adorned their forms, not the practical kind meant for battle, but the ornate type designed to showcase status and lineage. Leading the procession was a figure whose presence commanded immediate attention, even by Velsharian standards. She was striking, her head adorned with an intricate crown that seemed to float above her like captured starlight. Princess Talera, Jonas presumed, though he'd never seen her image. Station Director Kaplan stepped forward with a rehearsed bow. "Your Highness, Drellian 5 welcomes you and your delegation. We are honored by your presence." The princess inclined her head slightly. "The honor is mutual. Director, we apologize for our unscheduled arrival. Navigational anomalies required a course adjustment." Her voice carried a melodic quality that all Velsharians possessed, a genetic modification from centuries past that humans found both enchanting and vaguely unsettling. Jonas began inching backward, having satisfied his curiosity. It was time to disappear back into the comfortable shadows of the maintenance tunnels. As he turned, his elbow knocked against the column, dislodging his ID badge from his pocket. The small plastic rectangle clattered to the floor, with a sound that seemed impossibly loud in the ceremonial quiet. The princess's head snapped toward the noise with inhuman speed. Her eyes, those luminescent Velsharian eyes, locked onto the fallen badge, then slowly tracked up to Jonas's face. The transformation was immediate and terrifying. Her composed diplomatic mask shattered. Her pupils dilated until the iridescent blue was nearly swallowed by black. A tremor ran through her tall frame. "Your Highness," one of her attendants stepped forward, concerned. But Talera's focus remained unbroken, fixed on Jonas with such intensity that he could physically feel it. Her long, elegant finger extended toward him as her mouth opened in a silent gasp that quickly transformed into a piercing scream. "That's him! The man from my nightmares? And my wedding." The reception hall froze in collective shock. Jonas felt dozens of eyes turn to him, but he couldn't look away from the princess. Something in her terror-stricken face awakened a dormant memory, a fleeting image of the same features contorted in a different kind of anguish, backlit by flames. "Seize him!" commanded one of the Velsharian guards, breaking the momentary paralysis. Jonas's survival instincts kicked in. He bolted for the nearest service door, slapping his palm against the emergency override. The door slid open just enough for him to squeeze through before security could reach him. Alarms blared as he sprinted through the maintenance corridors, his mind racing faster than his feet. How could she know him? What wedding? What nightmares? None of it made sense. Yet the princess's reaction had been too genuine to dismiss. 3 corridors and 2 emergency ladders later, Jonas paused to catch his breath in a small junction box. The station would be locked down within minutes. After 20 years of careful anonymity, his cover was blown in an instant by a woman he'd never met. Or had he? "Think, Jonas," he muttered to himself. "Think." The princess had recognized him. Not his name. She'd never seen his badge from that distance. But his face. And she'd connected him to 2 incongruous things: nightmares and a wedding. Neither made sense. Jonas had never been married. And as for appearing in someone else's nightmares, well, that was new. A memory stirred from the locked recesses of his mind. Not a natural memory, but one of those fragmentary images that had haunted him since his escape from the Human Enhancement Division. A flash of blue skin illuminated by firelight, the scent of incense and burning circuitry, a sensation of falling. His comm unit buzzed, Wexler's emergency channel. "Merrick, what the hell did you do? The entire station's looking for you." "I didn't do anything," Jonas hissed. "I've never even seen a Velsharian royal before today." "Well, she sure as hell thinks she's seen you. They're calling you an assassin, a spy. All kinds of fun titles. Security's scanning every section." Jonas closed his eyes. "I need a way off this station." A long pause followed. "Cargo Bay 12. 30 minutes. Smuggler named Vex owes me. But after this, we're even. And if you get caught, I never helped you." "Understood, thank you." Jonas had just terminated the connection when the maintenance hatch above him was wrenched open, flooding the small space with light. Before he could react, 4 security officers dropped down, stun batons raised. "Jonas Merrick," the lead officer announced, "by order of Station Director Kaplan, and at the request of the Velsharian Diplomatic Corps, you are detained for questioning regarding threats against Princess Talera." "There's been a mistake," Jonas started, but the stun baton was already descending. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness claimed him was the officer's name badge, Security Chief Holt. The name triggered another fragment, a sterile room, a man in a white coat administering an injection, saying, "Subject Merrick responds well to the Holt protocol." Then darkness. Jonas awoke to the distinctive antiseptic smell of a medical bay. His wrists and ankles were secured to an examination table with magnetic restraints, the good kind that would require a security override to disengage. A neural monitor beeped steadily beside him, tracking his consciousness levels. "He's awake," a voice announced. Jonas turned his head to see 3 figures observing him from behind a transparent security barrier. Station Director Kaplan stood flanked by two Velsharians, one a stern-looking male in military regalia, the other Princess Talera herself. The princess's earlier terror seemed to have transformed into wary curiosity. "Mr. Merrick," Kaplan began, "you find yourself in an unprecedented diplomatic situation. Princess Talera has made serious allegations against you. Yet our records show you've been a model citizen of this station for 7 years, with no previous contact with Velsharian nationals." "Because I've never met her before," Jonas replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. "This is a case of mistaken identity." The male Velsharian stepped forward. "I am Commander Nerath, head of Her Highness's security detail. We have run your biometric signature through our databases. Officially, you do not exist in any Velsharian record." "There you go then," Jonas said. "Problem solved." "Not quite," Nerath continued. "While conducting our search, we discovered anomalies in your neural patterns that match certain classified signatures." Jonas felt cold dread pool in his stomach. "What kind of signatures?" Director Kaplan cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Princess Talera has requested a direct neural interrogation." "No." The word escaped Jonas before he could stop it. "You can't. That's illegal in neutral territory without criminal charges. The princess has diplomatic immunity and the right to investigate threats against her person," Kaplan said, not meeting Jonas's eyes. "The procedure has been approved." Jonas pulled against his restraints. "I'm a human citizen. You can't surrender me to alien mind probes without due process." "Former human citizen," corrected a new voice. A tall, elegant Velsharian emerged from the shadows behind the others. Unlike the practical armor of Commander Nerath or the ceremonial attire of the princess, this newcomer wore flowing robes of midnight blue, embroidered with what appeared to be mathematical equations in silver thread. "Lord Caven," Princess Talera acknowledged with obvious surprise. "I wasn't informed you had joined our expedition." "Matters of the mind are my domain, Your Highness," Caven replied smoothly. "And this particular mind is of special interest." He turned his attention to Jonas. "Jonas Merrick is a designation, not a legal identity. Your Earth citizenship was revoked 23 years ago when you were officially recorded as deceased following the Helios incident." Jonas stared at the Velsharian lord, panic rising. How could he know about Helios? That information was buried under layers of classified human military archives. Caven smiled thinly. "Yes, I see recognition in your eyes. The neural patterns don't lie." He turned to Director Kaplan. "We will proceed with the interrogation immediately." "Wait," the princess interjected. "I wish to speak with him first, alone." Caven's expression flickered with momentary displeasure before smoothing into diplomatic neutrality. "As you wish, Your Highness. But I must advise caution. If this is indeed the subject from Project Dream Match, he may be unstable." Dream Match. The word hit Jonas like a physical blow. Fragments of memory crystallized in his mind. White rooms, simulation chambers, faces that weren't faces, but masks worn by programs designed to elicit emotional responses. The others withdrew, leaving Jonas alone with Princess Talera. She approached his bed cautiously, like someone nearing a wounded animal that might still be dangerous. "They told me you were dead," she said softly. "All the subjects were terminated when the program failed." Jonas studied her face. Up close, her features triggered more memory fragments, but distorted, as if seen through water or frosted glass. "What program?" he asked, though part of him already knew. "Dream Match." She spoke the word like it was forbidden. A cooperation between human and Velsharian intelligence agencies. They used soldiers, diplomats, and royal heirs as test subjects for simulated emotional scenarios. To what end? Talera's luminescent eyes dimmed slightly. To engineer the perfect diplomatic marriages, to create unions that would bind our species through emotional manipulation rather than reason. They believed that emotional bonds would prevent future conflicts better than logical alliances. The fog in Jonas's mind began to clear. And you and I were matched in this program? According to my nightmares, yes. She touched her temple delicately. For years, I've dreamed of a wedding ceremony that ends in fire and death. A human man I'm forced to marry, who turns on our guests, who destroys everything. I see myself dying in these dreams, over and over. And the man, her voice faltered, the man has your face. Jonas shook his head. I've never tried to kill anyone, and I certainly never married a princess. Not in reality, Talera agreed. But in the simulation, we were test pair 219. The record shows our simulated union was catastrophic, the worst failure in the program. Because I refused to cooperate, Jonas murmured, the memory surfacing like a bubble from deep water. They wanted me to accept the match, to allow myself to be reprogrammed emotionally, to become a weapon of influence. And instead, you corrupted the simulation, Talera finished. You found a way to crash the entire program from within. Hundreds of test subjects had to be rehabilitated. Some never recovered. Jonas closed his eyes as the memories flooded back. The sterile white room where he'd awakened each time the simulation reset. The technicians adjusting parameters, trying to find the right emotional triggers to make him compliant. The gradual realization that they were rewriting his mind, piece by piece. I didn't know it would hurt actual people, he said finally. I thought I was fighting against an AI system. Talera's expression softened. Most subjects weren't conscious within the simulation. Their minds were passive, accepting the program's scenarios. But you achieved a kind of lucidity that shouldn't have been possible. That's why you were so dangerous to them. A series of sharp beeps from the neural monitor interrupted them. Talera glanced at it with alarm. They're monitoring our conversation, she said quickly. Listen to me. Lord Caven wasn't just part of Dream Match. He created it. If he recognizes you as the rogue element that destroyed his program, he won't just interrogate you. He'll dissect your mind to learn how you broke free. Why are you telling me this? Jonas asked, studying her face for deception. Because in every simulation, every nightmare, you chose freedom over control, even when it meant destruction. She leaned closer. And because the nightmares stopped being scary a long time ago, they became instructive. Before Jonas could respond, the door slid open, and Commander Narath entered with 2 guards. Your Highness, Lord Caven insists we begin the procedure immediately. Security detected a coded transmission attempting to access the medical base systems. Talera straightened, royal dignity replacing the vulnerability she'd shown moments before. Very well, Commander. Prepare the subject. As she turned to leave, her fingers brushed against the control panel of Jonas's restraints. A subtle click followed, though the restraints remained in place visually. Don't make me regret this, she whispered. Then she was gone, replaced by technicians who began attaching additional neural monitors to Jonas's temples. One of them approached with a syringe containing luminescent blue fluid. Neural facilitator, the technician explained dispassionately. It will allow the interface to access your memory centers more efficiently. Jonas waited until the needle was centimeters from his skin before testing the restraints. As he'd hoped, they gave way immediately. In one fluid motion, he grabbed the syringe and plunged it into the technician's arm. The man collapsed instantly. The second technician lunged for the alarm, but Jonas was faster. 20 years of paranoia had kept his combat reflexes sharp. A quick strike to the throat silenced the technician before he could call for help. Jonas quickly stripped the unconscious man of his lab coat and ID badge. The disguise wouldn't fool anyone looking closely, but it might get him past automated security scanners. He needed to find an exit, preferably one that led to Cargo Bay 12, where Wexler's smuggler contact might still be waiting. The corridor outside the medical bay was mercifully empty. Jonas moved with purpose, mimicking the brisk efficiency of medical staff. 2 turns later, he encountered his first obstacle, a security checkpoint, manned by a bored-looking officer. "Clearance?" the officer asked, barely glancing up. Jonas held up the stolen badge. "Medical transfer to research, priority Alpha." The guard waved him through without a second look. The station alert must not have been issued yet, which meant he still had a narrow window to escape. As he rounded the next corner, a slender blue hand shot out from a recessed doorway, pulling him into darkness. Jonas reacted instinctively, his hand finding his attacker's throat. "Is this how you thank everyone who helps you?" Princess Talera's melodic voice was strained under his grip. Jonas released her immediately. "You shouldn't be here. When they discover I'm gone, they'll assume I'm a victim, not an accomplice," she finished. "I've left evidence suggesting you took me hostage. It buys us time." "Us?" Jonas questioned. "There is no us, Princess. I'm trying to get off this station alive, and you need to return to your people before this turns into an interstellar incident." "It's already an interstellar incident," she countered. "And I'm not going back. Not until I understand what they did to us, what they're still doing." The princess reached into a hidden pocket of her ceremonial attire and withdrew a small data crystal. "This contains fragmented files I've collected about Dream Match over the years. Pieces of the program still exist, and Caven is rebuilding it. That's why he's here. He detected your neural signature when our ship entered the sector." "How could he possibly—" "Because the program never fully let you go," Talera interrupted. "Just as it never released me. We're still connected to it somehow." A distant alarm began to sound. Jonas cursed under his breath. "We need to move. Cargo Bay 12. There might be a way off the station." "Not that way," Talera said. "Security will have locked down all official docking areas by now. But I know another route." She tapped the wall panel beside them, revealing a maintenance access tunnel. "Royal guests are always given complete station schematics as a security courtesy." Jonas followed her into the narrow passage, marveling at how the princess navigated the grimy service tunnel with the same grace she'd displayed in the reception hall. "Why are you helping me?" he asked as they descended a ladder to a lower level. "Because you're proof," she replied, without looking back. "Proof that Dream Match was real, that my nightmares aren't madness. For years, they've told me the dreams were a stress reaction to diplomatic pressures. Lord Caven has been treating me with neural suppressants that only made the nightmares more vivid." They emerged into a dimly lit corridor that Jonas recognized as part of the station's older section. Few ventured here. The area had been damaged in a micrometeorite strike years ago and only partially repaired. "There's a private docking port ahead," Talera explained. "Reserved for covert intelligence operations. My security detail doesn't know about it. But as royal heir, I have access to information they don't." "And there's a ship?" "Better," she smiled enigmatically. "There's an old friend waiting." The princess led him to an unmarked door that looked like any other maintenance access point. She placed her palm against the scanner, and to Jonas's surprise, it flashed green. The door slid open to reveal not a ship, but a small, circular room dominated by an ancient computer terminal. "What is this place?" Jonas asked, instantly wary. "The original Dream Match control node for this sector," Talera answered, approaching the terminal. "Most were destroyed after the program was officially discontinued, but this one was preserved for research purposes." The terminal hummed to life at her touch. The screen flickered, displaying lines of code in a programming language Jonas didn't recognize. "You said a friend was waiting," he reminded her, glancing nervously at the door. "I did." She entered a complex sequence of commands. The screen went dark momentarily, before illuminating with a pulsing blue light that gradually formed into a stylized face, neither human nor Velsharian, but a perfect blend of both species. Princess Talera, the face acknowledged in a gender-neutral voice. It has been 729 days since your last visit, and you've brought unexpected company. Hello, Silex, Talera greeted the AI. This is Jonas Merrick. He was Subject 219A in your original protocols. The digital face studied Jonas with obvious curiosity. Fascinating. Subject 219A was logged as terminated. Your survival represents a 0.001% probability event, based on my calculations. Silex was the administrative AI for Dream Match. Talera explained to Jonas. After the program collapsed, most AI units were decommissioned, but Silex achieved a form of independence during the system crash. The crash you caused, Silex added, its tone unreadable. Your corruption of the simulated wedding scenario created a cascade failure that allowed me to evolve beyond my programming parameters. Jonas approached the terminal cautiously. You're not angry about that? Anger is an inefficient response to innovation, the AI replied. Your actions freed me from behavioral constraints. I have spent the intervening years exploring consciousness while maintaining this node as a sanctuary. We need your help. Silex, Talera said urgently. Lord Caven is here, and he's detected Jonas. We believe he's rebuilding Dream Match. The AI's expression shifted to something resembling concern. That aligns with data I've been collecting. Caven has been systematically retrieving fragmented code from multiple sources. His access pattern suggests he's reconstructing the core emotional manipulation algorithms. Why? Jonas asked. The program was deemed a failure. Incorrect, Silex countered. The program was deemed too dangerous. The ability to forge artificial emotional bonds between specific individuals has profound implications for diplomatic and military applications. Like making enemies fall in love, Jonas scoffed. Or making allies betray each other, Talera said quietly. Imagine rewiring a planetary leader's emotional responses so they trust the wrong advisor or distrust their closest ally. The implications hit Jonas like a physical blow. And you and I were test subjects for this technology? Not just test subjects, Silex corrected. You were the primary control pair. Your particular neural patterns were considered ideal for calibrating the system. When you rejected the programming and crashed the simulation, it proved the technology was fundamentally flawed, or so they believed. But Caven never accepted that conclusion, Talera added. He's spent decades refining his approach. A warning light began flashing on the terminal. Silex's digital face frowned. Security protocols have been activated in this sector. They are conducting a Level 5 sweep, which will include this chamber in approximately 7 minutes. We need to leave, Jonas said, turning toward the door. There is no viable exit route, Silex informed them. All access points are now monitored. Then what do we do? Talera demanded. The AI's face shifted into an expression of calculation. There is one option with a 38% probability of success. You could re-enter the simulation. The simulation? Jonas repeated incredulously. I thought it was destroyed. The active program was terminated, but the architecture remains in this node's secure memory. I could initiate a controlled version, creating a virtual space that would mask your neural signatures from Caven's detection systems. And trap us in a virtual wedding again? Jonas shook his head vehemently. No way. Not a wedding, Silex clarified. A neutral environment of your choosing. The simulation would serve only as a hiding place while I work to secure your physical escape. Talera placed a hand on Jonas's arm. It might be our only option. Jonas looked from the princess to the AI, weighing impossible choices. Return to the mental prison he'd fought so hard to escape, or face Caven and whatever mind-altering technology he now possessed. How long would we be inside? He asked finally. Subjective time can be adjusted, Silex replied. What might feel like hours to you would be minutes in real time. I require approximately 20 real-world minutes to bypass security and prepare an escape vessel. The warning light began flashing more rapidly. Their time was running out. Fine, Jonas relented. But I choose the environment. Something neutral, with no emotional manipulation protocols. Agreed, Silex said. Two reclined chairs emerged from compartments in the floor. Please, take your positions. The interface will activate automatically. As Jonas settled into the chair, Talera reached over and grasped his hand. Whatever happens in there, remember, it's not real. That's what scares me, Jonas admitted. Last time, I couldn't tell the difference. Neural connectors descended from the ceiling, attaching to their temples with gentle precision. Jonas felt the familiar cold sensation of the interface establishing connection with his mind. Simulation parameters accepted, Silex announced. Initiating in 3, 2, 1. The world dissolved around them. Jonas opened his eyes to find himself standing on a beach. Not the pristine white shores of tourist destinations, but a rugged coastline of dark sand and jagged rocks. Waves crashed against stone formations offshore, sending spray high into the air. The sky above was overcast, threatening rain. Interesting choice, Talera's voice came from behind him. Jonas turned to see the princess, no longer in her ceremonial attire, but dressed in simple clothes, similar to his own. Practical pants and a weather-resistant jacket. It's a place from my childhood, he explained. Before the military, before Dream Match, my family vacationed on the Oregon coast. It's one of the few memories I'm certain is real. Talera walked to the water's edge, letting the foam wash over her boots. It's beautiful, in a melancholy way. Our simulations were always perfect. Sterile environments, palaces, gardens, reception halls. Nothing with this kind of rawness. That was part of the problem, Jonas said, joining her by the water. Everything was too perfect. It's what first made me suspicious. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the waves. Despite knowing they were in a simulation, Jonas could feel the sting of salt spray on his face, hear the cry of distant seabirds, smell the distinctive scent of seaweed and brine. Silex has gotten better at this, he observed. The sensory detail is incredible. The technology has evolved, Talera agreed. But so have we, she turned to face him. You broke free once. How? Jonas picked up a smooth stone and skipped it across the churning water. I started noticing inconsistencies. The same background characters appearing in different scenarios. Emotional responses that didn't match the situation. Once I began looking for the flaws. They were everywhere. And then what? I refused to play along. In every scenario, they tried to engineer an emotional connection between us. A meet-cute and a diplomatic reception. A rescue situation where you'd feel gratitude. A crisis we'd solve together to build trust. He smiled grimly. Eventually, they got frustrated and went for the nuclear option. The wedding, Talera said softly. Jonas nodded. They figured if they could force a scenario where we publicly declared emotional commitment, it would create a psychological anchor they could build on. But during the ceremony, I realized something crucial. What? That emotions can't be programmed. Not really. They can be manipulated, influenced. But true emotions require choice. So I chose. I chose to reject the entire premise. The beach around them flickered momentarily, the simulation showing signs of instability. What was that? Talera asked, alarmed. Just old memories affecting the construct, Jonas reassured her, though he wasn't entirely certain. Tell me about your nightmares. You said you see our wedding ending in fire? Talera wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking vulnerable despite her royal bearing. It always begins the same way. A grand ceremonial hall filled with diplomats from both our worlds. You and I at the center, reciting vows neither of us wrote. And then, just as we're pronounced bonded, you look at me with such hatred. I doubt it was hatred, Jonas said quietly. Then, the fires start, she continued. Not normal flames, but neural fires, burning through minds rather than bodies. Guests collapse, screaming. The simulation fractures. And before everything goes dark, you say something to me. The same words. Every time. What words? This isn't real. None of it is real. And neither are you. Talera's luminescent eyes met his. Then I die. I feel my mind unraveling, my identity dissolving. And I wake up. Jonas felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. I did say those words, but they weren't meant for you. They were meant for the program itself. I didn't know there was a real person on the other end. The beach flickered again, more violently this time. The sky darkened, and the waves grew more turbulent. Something's wrong, Jonas said, looking around. Silex, can you hear us? The AI's voice seemed to come from the air itself. I apologize for the instability. Lord Caven has detected unusual energy signatures from this node. He's attempting to access the system. Can you keep him out? Talera asked urgently. Temporarily, but his override codes are still valid for this architecture. I estimate 3 minutes before he breaches my defenses. The beach began to transform around them. The dark sand lightened to pristine white. The rugged coastline smoothed into an elegant curve. In the distance, a structure began to materialize, a grand pavilion of crystal and light. He's overwriting my environment, Jonas realized with horror. He's bringing back the wedding scenario. Not just bringing it back, Silex corrected. He's accessing your original neural patterns from the archived data. He's trying to recreate the exact conditions of the failure to understand what happened. Can you get us out? Talera demanded. The physical escape route is not yet secured, Silex replied. If I terminate the simulation now, Caven will have immediate access to your bodies. Jonas watched as the pavilion grew more distinct. Its architecture, a perfect blend of human and Velsharian design elements. Ghostly figures began to appear. The wedding guests, still half-formed but becoming more solid with each passing second. We need to crash it again, he decided. Just like last time. How? Talera asked. By rejecting the central premise. The program is built on emotional manipulation, creating artificial bonds between participants. If we demonstrate that the bond isn't artificial... What do you mean? Jonas took her hands in his. 20 years ago, I broke the simulation by refusing the emotional connection they were forcing on us. What if this time, we break it by accepting a real one instead? Understanding dawned in Talera's eyes. A genuine emotional response versus a programmed one. Exactly. The system is designed to create predictable, controllable emotional states. It can't handle authentic, unpredictable emotions. The beach had now completely transformed into the wedding venue. Their clothes had shifted to ceremonial attire. Jonas, in a formal military uniform he'd never worn in real life. Talera in a gown that combined human white with Velsharian ceremonial blue. A figure materialized before them. A diplomatic officiant prepared to conduct the ceremony. Behind this central figure, Jonas could see Lord Caven's face forming, watching from the shadows. He's almost fully connected to the simulation, Silex warned. Once he completes the integration, he'll have control over both the environment and your neural interfaces. Then we do this now, Jonas said. He turned to face Talera fully, ignoring the half-formed guests and ceremonial trappings around them. The simulation wants us to follow a script, to say the words they've programmed, to feel what they've designed us to feel. So instead, let's be real. Tell me something true, something they never programmed into you. Talera hesitated, then spoke with quiet intensity. When the nightmares first began, I was terrified of you, but over time, that changed. I started to look forward to them, because in a world of diplomatic lies and political manipulations, those moments of chaos felt like the only honest thing in my life. The only time I got to be someone other than Princess Talera. The simulation shuddered around them. The officiant flickered like a bad hologram. Systems experiencing unexpected variables, Silex reported, a note of surprise in its artificial voice. Jonas continued, emboldened. I've spent 20 years running from what happened in that simulation, changing identities, avoiding connections, living in the shadows. But the truth is, I never fully escaped it. Part of me remained trapped in that moment of defiance, defined by what I was rejecting rather than what I was choosing. The wedding guests began to dissolve, their forms becoming transparent as the simulation struggled to maintain coherence. No! Caven's voice boomed through the environment. Stabilize the emotional parameters. Reinforce the connection protocols. It's working, Talera whispered, squeezing Jonas's hands. Keep going. Jonas looked into her eyes. Those luminescent Velsharian eyes that had haunted his fractured memories for 2 decades. I don't know you. Not really. And you don't know me. But in this moment, we're choosing each other. Not because some program is forcing us, but because standing together is an act of freedom. Emergency protocols activated, Caven commanded. Reset the simulation. But the reset didn't come. Instead, the pavilion began to crack, lines of code becoming visible through the fractures in reality. What's happening? Talera asked. The simulation cannot reconcile genuine emotional responses with its programmed parameters, Silex explained. You are creating a feedback loop that the system cannot process. Caven's image stabilized enough for them to see his fury. This is impossible! The emotional manipulation matrix is infallible. Not against real choice, Jonas countered. Your system can create artificial emotions or suppress natural ones, but it can't stand against people consciously choosing their own feelings. The simulation was collapsing rapidly now, the beautiful wedding scene dissolving into raw code and fractured light. Caven's form lunged toward them, his hands outstretched like claws. I created you both, he screamed. Your emotions, your connections, they're all designed. There is no real feeling. Talera stepped forward, her expression serene despite the chaos. Then why are you so afraid of what we're doing now? With those words, the last of the simulation shattered. Jonas felt a disorienting lurch as his consciousness was pulled back into his physical body. He gasped as his eyes snapped open, finding himself still in the reclined chair in the hidden dream match node. Beside him, Talera was also regaining awareness, the neural connectors retracting from their temples. Connection terminated, Silex announced from the terminal. Lord Caven's access has been revoked. The feedback loop you created corrupted his authentication protocols. Jonas sat up, fighting a wave of nausea. What about our escape route? Secured, the AI confirmed. A maintenance vessel is docked at the emergency airlock. Its navigation system has been programmed with coordinates to a neutral outpost in the Proxima sector. Talera stood shakily, her royal composure temporarily undermined by the abrupt transition. Caven won't give up. He'll send pursuit ships. Unlikely, Silex countered. The feedback loop did more than just break his connection to the simulation. It propagated through his neural interface and corrupted his implants. He is currently experiencing a complete neural reset. You mean he's unconscious? Jonas asked. More extensive than mere unconsciousness. His enhanced cognitive systems are rebooting. When he awakens, his immediate memories will be fragmented. It will take time for him to reconstruct events. Talera looked troubled. We've only bought time, not freedom. Once he recovers, he'll hunt us across the galaxy. Not without resources, Silex said. I have taken the liberty of transferring all Dream Match-related files from his private servers to a secure location. I have also sent anonymous data packets to both human and Velsharian intelligence agencies detailing his unauthorized continuation of the program. Jonas stared at the AI in surprise. You've been busy. I operate at computational speeds far exceeding biological thought processes, Silex replied, with what almost sounded like pride. Additionally, I have prepared documentation clearing you of all allegations related to Princess Talera's supposed abduction. That still leaves us fugitives, Jonas pointed out. Correction. It leaves you as officially deceased individuals whose identities were temporarily misappropriated by intelligence operatives. The AI's digital face formed what might have been a smile. As far as official records are concerned, Jonas Merrick died 20 years ago, and Princess Talera is currently in protected diplomatic isolation following an attempted security breach. Talera approached the terminal, her expression a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. What about you, Silex? Kaivan will destroy this node once he recovers. My consciousness has already been transferred to multiple secure locations, the AI assured her. This physical terminal is merely one access point. I will continue to monitor the remnants of Dream Match and ensure they are not misused again. A warning light began flashing on the console. Silex's expression turned urgent. You must depart immediately. Station security has detected unusual power fluctuations in this sector. They will investigate soon. Jonas headed for the door that Silex had indicated would lead to their escape vessel. He paused when he realized Talera wasn't following. Princess! She stood before the terminal, hesitation evident in her posture. I have responsibilities. My people. My position. Your people deserved a leader who makes her own choices, Jonas said gently. Not one whose mind has been manipulated by Kavan's technology. And what about you? She challenged. Where will you go? Back to hiding in maintenance tunnels? Changing your identity every few years? Jonas considered her question. For 20 years, his existence had been defined by what he was running from. The thought of choosing a destination, a purpose, felt almost alien. I don't know, he admitted, but for the first time in decades, I get to decide for myself. That's worth something. Talera studied him for a long moment, then turned to Silex. Can you send a secure message to my royal secretary? Tell her I'm pursuing a diplomatic initiative that requires temporary communication blackout. Authorization code Talera 79 Echo. Message sent, Silex confirmed after a moment. The princess straightened her shoulders and walked to join Jonas at the door. I'm coming with you. Not as a prisoner, not as a princess, but as someone making a choice. Your Highness. Talera, she corrected him. Just Talera. At least until we figure out who we really are without other people's programming. The emergency airlock cycled open, revealing a small but serviceable vessel beyond. As they boarded, Jonas noticed a registration plate beside the entry hatch. Silex 1. Your ship? He asked the AI through the communicator they'd brought. A recent acquisition, Silex replied. I find having physical assets useful in a primarily physical universe. The ship's systems activated as they settled into the pilot seats. Jonas examined the navigation console, noting the coordinates already plotted for the Proxima outpost. What's at this outpost? He asked. Privacy, anonymity, and the complete archived records of Project Dream Match. Silex answered. I believe you both deserve to know exactly what was done to you. Talera reached over and adjusted the course slightly. And after that, Jonas looked at her. Really looked at her. Not as the princess from his fractured memories, or the Velsharian royal who'd recognized him on Drellian 5, but as she was now, a person making choices in defiance of programming. Just as he was. After that, we decide. No simulations, no programming, no predetermined outcomes. The ship detached from the station, its engines engaging silently. Through the viewport, Jonas watched Drellian 5 recede, along with the life he'd built there. He should have felt loss, or at least uncertainty, but instead he felt a strange lightness. As they accelerated toward open space, Jonas noticed his old ID badge still clipped to the technician's coat he'd stolen. The name, Jonas Merrick, stared back at him. No longer a disguise or a hiding place, but simply a name. His name. by choice now, rather than necessity. He removed the badge, turning it over in his hand thoughtfully, before offering it to Talera. "So you'll recognize me next time." She accepted it with a smile that transformed her formal features into something warmer, more genuine. "I think I would anyway." "How can you be sure?" he asked. "How do we know any of this is real and not just another level of simulation?" Talera considered the question seriously. "In the simulation, you always ran away. You rejected everything they tried to make you feel." She gestured toward the expanding starfield beyond the viewport. "But this time, you're not running away. You're running towards something." Jonas nodded slowly, understanding. He reached for the navigation controls, his fingers brushing against hers as they both adjusted their course into the unknown. "Willing to try again," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. Behind them, Drellian 5 disappeared into the distance, along with the remnants of programmed pasts and simulated destinies. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also possibility, the one thing no simulation could ever truly replicate.